Hey everyone. Today we are going to talk about the origins of the Datahand and subsequent development of the Svalboard Palmrest. This is a Datahand. This is the original. I have a couple of these from my previous life when I was completely dependent on this device before I built Svalboard. And one of the things that was most wonderful about this product was that it actually let you rest your palm completely. So the palm rests on this nice rubber rest, and it supports the hand mostly underneath the sort of outer edge of the hand, and then the base of the thumb is cradled here to sit in the thumb keywell area, and it lets you completely unload your shoulder chain, right? So you can rest your hand here, your arm is not carrying any load, and all the work is done just by your fingers moving to type. So when I started off developing Svalboard, I figured I would start with the palmrest design that I knew and loved. So I basically just built an adapter to put that onto an early prototype, which I can show you here. So here it is. This is the Datahand palmrest on a simple plastic adapter that I printed and could put on my first prototype here. Well, this isn't actually the first prototype. This is probably about the 15th, but there's been some iteration. Anyway, it has the same shape, obviously, because it's the same part, and it still puts your hand in the same place. But one of the things that I always struggled with on Datahand was that, first of all, there was essentially no hand contact in this whole front area, and there was a little bit of support here, but I didn't use most of this shape. And when I wanted to create a fitment system for Svalboard that would be really flexible for any shape of hand, any size of hand, it became clear to me that I would need to reduce this shape. The other thing that I actually didn't like about the Datahand palmrest was that it tended to kind of force my pinky up and out a little bit too much. There was too much meat here, and I kind of prefer my hand to have a naturally cupped shape as it rests to use the device. I think that on Datahand, part of the issue was that the splay was quite wide, so you really needed your pinky held out and your palm held open a bit in order to use it. But with Svalboard, that's not the case because it's a lot narrower. So the first Svalboard palmrests that I built were actually clay. I'm not going to show those because they're frankly old and nasty, and I've thrown most of them away. But the approach I took was essentially to build a shapeable PLA sheet on some pylons so that you'd have a carrier that you could reach down through the screws and let it slide around on the device, adjust it in any direction, X, Y, and then if you needed to shim it up, you could do that to get more Z height. And then the PLA top was designed so that you could dip it in hot water and thermoform it to fit to your hand exactly how you want it. And this actually works really, really well, but it does require that you shape it if you want to have that perfect fit. And you know, that works well for some people, but I also wanted to make sure that I had a design that was really solid off the bat. So it took a lot of iteration to get to this shape. Originally, it was kind of a much more simplistic shape. And this supports my hand really nicely. It supports underneath this middle knuckle, which was kind of the critical support point on Datahand for me. But over time, the feedback that I got from users was that they didn't feel like they actually needed all of this upper palm support. And I didn't really know whether that was going to be a critical thing for people to adapt comfortably to using a Svalboard device. So I started experimenting with truncating the front edge of those parts. And here we have an example on which I've put some memory foam just to experiment with some compliance. And this one you can see is much, much shorter. It doesn't have that protrusion to the north edge. And on this, the only parts of the hand that are supported are the outer edge of the palm around through the thumb, and then this part underneath the knuckles here is let free, which it turns out is really helpful if you want to use a trackball underneath your palm. So this has been kind of the standard rest shape for a while now. But I want to show some other experiments that I've been through with these so that you can get a sense of just how much effort goes into designing and testing and building shapes and how much comes from the community in terms of other people's experimentation. Okay, so here is one of the original truncated versions of the palmrest that I made. The pylons were kind of moved to create some more space for the trackball sensor to tuck in here when this is pushed really far to the north and so on. And as you can see, with all of these, the top part and the bottom part are separable, so you can swap out the palmrest for a different part if you want to print one yourself, make your own designs, and so forth. So lately I've been exploring actually getting that knuckle support back, because sometimes I really feel like I like it. I like the stability of having something that kind of grounds my hand. I think it makes me a little more accurate. So this is a shape I built the other day that just kind of extends it just in that area so it doesn't impinge on the curling of the hand at all if you like to have a more curled posture. So there's that one. And here is a rest that was designed by a community member specifically to their hand. He modeled his hand with a 3D scanning tool and then sort of surfaced it in CAD and built this incredible shape that you can print out and scale and, thermoform to fit yourself exactly, but it's a very different approach. And I actually really love this fit. I think it's really nice because it cradles the meat of the thumb really nicely here, and it really gets under the knuckles in a way that I personally really enjoy. Although for me, the angle of it was a little bit off. I had to cant it forward and so forth. But the joy of doing this stuff in a community is that people are sharing their files for all these anatomical fitment details. So you can just take something that somebody else has built, modify it, change how this is pitched in CAD, and then print it out and try it out. And again, if you print in PLA, you can thermoform it too, so you can get the exact contour that you want for your hand. So this made me really happy. I think this was Cookie Monster? I can't recall. Anyway, someone on the Discord did this, and I thought it was really neat. Here is another version from the same person earlier in their experiment, or maybe later, I can't recall, where you can see the contours are similar, but they've split it so it doesn't need to have those pylons. This is kind of an artistic interpretation where you have this cool hollow shape. Again, this is just like, it just looks really cool. I love the feeling of it. I wish that I could ship a palm rest like this as product, but it's definitely very tuned for a specific hand size and shape. So this is another kind of thing that people can do when they go in community and build stuff on their own. Some other experiments that I've been doing have been around adding compliance. So you saw I put some memory foam on this guy. I really like this, but it does get scuzzy over time. It's not a super great solution in terms of something you want to keep clean that your hands are constantly in contact with. So I wanted to see what happens if we use TPU. This is thermoplastic polyurethane. So it's a flexible kind of rubbery material that you can 3D print. And this is printed very sparsely inside. There's almost no infill. So it's just kind of a squishy palm rest. You can hear the air puffing out of it when I squeeze it. And this goes on a little PLA carrier that then can slide on the plate. So you can slide it around, take this off, screw it down, and have it be exactly where you want it to stay. So then you have a completely smooth top surface. Here's another shape like that, where you can see I've just taken the contour and extruded it down. And these felt pretty good, but they're not actually that soft. TPUs that you can 3D print are typically still fairly stiff. And if you go to the really, really soft stuff, even that isn't that soft, and it's a total pain in the butt to print. This is Bamboo TPU 95A HF, which is a really easy material to work with. It prints great, even without support. You can have really tall things on the plate and it doesn't actually fall over. And it doesn't move that much while you're printing it, which is neat. But my experience with these was that while they feel compliant, and it's nice to have that little bit of extra squish, A, I want more squish, and B, this stuff does not breathe. So it gets quite sweaty and it's not really very pleasant on the fingers and the hands. So those are an experiment I was doing. Here's another one where I tried printing the adjustment slots directly into the TPU palm rest. This little bit in here obviously is quite squidgy and wiggly, so it doesn't stay put very well when you put screws into it. So that was a dead end. And I've also experimented with a range of other compliant materials. So this is neoprene foam. Again, a little bit too hard. For something that's going to go under your palm, you really want genuine softness in a lot of ways. It's important to have it in just the right places because there's places you don't want pressure. You don't want pressure inside the areas here where your nerves run in. Some people actually don't like any pressure underneath the knuckles in any way, but it's a very personal thing. So there's also been a lot of experimentation with much smaller palm rests. So this is a TPU one that's meant to be just under the heel. This is a design where I truncated the entire front of the rest, and Cyrus has been nice enough to build a bunch of designs on this basic framework that a number of people are using and really like when you just want to have that heel of the hand supported. If you're happy to have your whole hand free otherwise and you feel like you're accurate enough like that, that can work really well. There are also people who use no palm rest at all. You just have really good stable posture and actually prefer that because it lets them not have any pressure on any parts of their hand that might otherwise be uncomfortable for them. But in general, people tend to prefer to use a palm rest. So after all of this exploration, looking at compliant materials, foam, I've covered these things in leather, there have been people who've upholstered them. It's pretty neat, but I decided it was time to start experimenting with compliance more in earnest. So lately, I ordered some purple mattress squishy samplers. These cost $3 on the internet and they'll arrive in like a month. And this is an elastomeric grid that is part of a purple branded mattress. So they sell these as samplers so you can get a feel for what the mattress will feel like, because they have a layer of this on top of a traditional kind of like memory foam mattress in a box product. And it turns out that this stuff feels amazing. It's so squishy, it's so compliant, and because it has all these holes in it, it breathes pretty well. So I've been using these at my desk for the last few days, experimenting with how thick they need to be, whether or not I could handle just a flat block of this. Surprise, I can't. I really want something that has some contour, just like these rests over here. So I've been cutting these in half and laying them on surfaces and trying to understand how thick it needs to be, how much squish it needs to have, so that I can explore new shapes and materials for Palmrest design. So the last thing I'm going to show you here is something that I did recently, although actually here's a separate one. So this is a really cool prototype. Somebody at the University of Michigan helped out with this. They basically built a ball and, oh no, this is Cyrus. Cyrus built this. It's a ball and socket joint. So it's a floating palm rest. You put the heel of your hand on it and you just kind of settle into wherever you want to be and it can float with you. Personally, I find this really destabilizing and I don't like it. I would rather use no palm rest than to use this, but I'm sure there's somebody out there for whom this would work nicely. It turns out it's really hard to get a clamp like this to clamp really solidly in plastic, and even in metal, it's not so straightforward. But something with pitch roll adjustment is really, really cool. And I think it offers a lot of potential in the long run for fitment. So maybe someday we'll come up with a mechanism that really works here, find some off-the-shelf kind of fancy bearing hardware that could allow this to work. But for now, this is more of a pipe dream. But what I've been working on lately is going from this squishy design into something I might be able to cast. And what this is here is a TPU print of a part that I will probably eventually cast in silicone or some other, very flexible polyurethane in order to try out a perfectly shaped, contoured pad that's breathable that can go onto an existing palm rest. So here we go. It just drops in. We've got this little protrusion here that keeps it steady on the palm. And if we print this in TPU like this, it is, let's say, not squishy. It's flexible. I can bend it, but there isn't really a lot of give in it. It's nice that it's breathable, but I'm not sure it's any different than just printing this part in PLA to have a breathable palm rest. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to try and get something like this made with a really squishy polymer and see how it feels. And perhaps we'll be on the way to a totally new compliant palm rest top cover, which will allow for a completely smooth top surface, which just kind of looks cool and feels cool, although there isn't usually contact with the palm in this area. It's very carefully placed. And we'll see how that goes. So I'm really happy to share all this with you guys. I appreciate the community so much. We get so much enthusiastic feedback and actual experimentation. People print this stuff and they try it out on their own and they tell me what they like and what they don't like. They do their own takes on it. Everybody has a different preference about it. And it makes me so, so happy to be able to serve this community of people who suffer with RSI, of people who love to tinker, who love to build, who love weird alien keyboards, and who want to keep the Datahand dream alive. So that's our tour of Palmrest for the day, and I hope you check in next time. Come visit us on the Discord, svalboard.com/Discord, and the shop, of course, is just svalboard.com. Check it out, buy a build, support me, buy a kit, support me, help me keep doing this work, and I love you all and really appreciate you. Have a great day.